Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 28 of the Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series. In today's video, we are going to be talking about safety during study abroad. This is a very important topic. This is something that a lot of the students that I work with are very interested in because it's important. And of course, when you are in a foreign country, you definitely feel it to be a little bit more heightened because it's not familiar to you. If you have not had a chance to check out the free mini course that I have, definitely check that out. It is linked below. We have an entire module on safety. We're going to go ahead and dive into the video on this right now. All right, so we are in day 28 of day 30, so coming to the end. How has this series been going for you? Please leave a comment below if you have not already to talk more about how it's been going, what has been some of the most informative things that you have learned. I would love to hear your feedback. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about safety for study abroad. If you have not had a chance to download the free mini course that I offer on surviving your first month away of study abroad, definitely click into the description box and access that for free. You can save it even if you're not planning to study abroad right now. But we're going to talk about some safety issues when it comes to study abroad because I know that this is something that weighs on the mind of students. It obviously weighs on the mind of parents, and we really just, like everything else that I talk about here, have to be honest about it. So being vulnerable in a new land, this is something that all of us go through. Obviously, I think that I can go out on a limb and say with conviction that for us that are, women, it feels a little bit different. I know that, men go through a lot of things too, but there's a different way that women navigate the world when it comes to vulnerability and the things that we have to think about. So this applies to anyone, but just kind of keeping in mind that as you are stepping out into this journey, you are bound to have a lot of fun. There's a lot of great things that are going to happen, and you're going to get to meet new people, see new things, and all of that. But you also have to be wise about the decisions that you make. And a lot of it comes down to a lot of things you've been told since you were a kid. So stranger danger, and just making sure that you use your common sense. A lot of times your parents probably would have had this conversation with you when you first went off to college or university, or even if you're just in high school or secondary school now. As you're growing up, there's more conversations as you become an adult of things to do, things to look out for. And so you want to just understand that as a study abroad student, you are in a vulnerable position because you're new. You're brand new to the culture of where you are. You're brand new to the place where you are. And so there are people who are always ready to prey on that. There are a lot of tell signs of someone who is not native to the land of wherever you're going. People can just tell by your style of dress. They can tell by the way you interact with certain things. People can spot tourists. They can spot people that are brand new, and particularly if they're unfortunately wanting to do bad to you. So you just have to kind of approach everything knowing that you are vulnerable. So even if that's something where you're meeting new people, if you're meeting new people within your program, that's different. But if you're going out to, let's say, a club or a pub or a bar or something, you don't just want to keep kind of reminding people, oh, I'm, obviously they're going to know you're not from there, but you don't ever want to come from a place of vulnerability of, oh, can you just help me figure it out? And I just don't know anything. You always want to appear more confident than you are, because people tend to prey on the weak, and they tend to prey on people that they feel that they can prey on. So you always want to come at any situation from a sense of having agency over it. So fear versus reality. Now, as you know, by going through this process with me for the past 27 days, or if you've watched any other videos on my channel, specifically when I talk about this, is that I am not a fear-based person. I'm a fact-based person. And so I don't like to just do fear factor and, fear mongering of everything is horrible and the world is so scary. I do not believe that. I believe that for the most part, the world is good. Are there lots of horrible things that happen? Yes, but there's been horrible things since the beginning of time, and there will continue to be horrible things. But I also like for my students to be able to use common sense and discernment and be able to use their best judgment. And so you have to be able to, if you're going to study abroad, just like when you first went off to college or university, you have to be able to make the distinction between what is just in my mind of what I am fearing and what is reality within my situation, and what can I control and what can I not control. And I think that as you're going through the free mini course, that you'll see more of that, because we dive deeper into that as well. So just think about it from those terms of, even though this is really exciting, you also want to have a sober view of what is happening and just understanding that you are more vulnerable as a study abroad student, and you need to just make sure that no matter where you're traveling to, that you need to have some safety wit about you. So I talk about this in the mini course, but I didn't want to just brush over it. Again, as you know by now, I like to just keep it 100%, and I don't use lots of cutesy terms and try to be too politically correct about things. I think that that doesn't help anyone, and I know that's the world that we live in today, where people just want to kind of make everyone feel better. I don't live in that world, and I'm not going to do that. So with scary scenarios, again, this is very, very general, and this is worst case scenario. This is not saying that this is going to happen to you. God forbid that it does, but we have to be realistic about a lot of the things that are out there, particularly in our landscape today. So some of the things that you can use your safety wits about you to prevent or to at least be aware of. So human trafficking, we know that it's something that has gotten a lot more attention within the past 5 or 6 years. It's been happening for forever, but it's definitely become much more of a global, there's a lot more initiatives behind it. And I know even here in the US, people are talking about it a lot more, but human trafficking is something that can happen to the most innocent of people. Most people who are human trafficked are, I would never victim blame, but I'm just saying, like, people are innocent when it happens to them, but people who are even well-meaning, who think that it could not happen to them, it can happen to you. And so you definitely want to be aware of that. So this includes things, and we talk about this in the mini course, of making sure that if you're using things like rideshare, there's so many stop gaps now of making sure that you're getting in the right car, or making sure that if something is not quite right, again, it goes back to that old saying. I know that here in the US, after the events of 9/11, there was this huge marketing campaign of see something, say something. And we have moved forward with that in a lot of ways, that we see something, we say something. It's the same thing with things like human trafficking. If you see something, say something, not just for yourself, but even if you are out somewhere and something looks really off, with you're looking at someone and it doesn't look well. I know that now on things like TikTok, they have the different hand signs that people use. That is great. But if they're not even doing that and something looks off, and you feel like you need to say something, I would prefer, as a study abroad coach and as just someone who is out in the world just like you, that you said something and you'd be wrong, than to not stand up and say something, whether it be for yourself or advocating for someone else. It doesn't mean that you are going out and being a Karen. I'll just say that you're not being a Karen and walking up to every person. You're a human trafficker. You're not doing that, but we have just basic human instincts, and you can usually tell if something seems off. So if you see someone out there, you're out somewhere with your friends during your study abroad semester, you see something strange, definitely say something. Other scary scenarios, assault, of course. This is not something that we hope anyone ever has to deal with when they're studying abroad, but we do know that there is a heightened opportunity to be assaulted when you're studying abroad. Again, you're vulnerable. There's a lot of things that people who would want to hurt you know about the city, about the town, about different things that they can sort of impress upon you, to impress you, to take advantage of you. So definitely that's something that we hope it never happens to anyone. But if you are in that situation, there are lots of free resources out there to help you. Gun violence, knife crime, I want to just say that I'm not putting these on the same level. As an American, I cannot do that. Obviously, we know that sort of the gun violence thing, it happens everywhere, but for a lot of students, and I talk about this in the mini course, for a lot of students that I work with who are coming to the US, and I know for a lot of American students watching this, whatever, I'm not going to get into the political debate about it either way, but I will just say that for a lot of students coming to the US, this is one of their top questions that they have, because even though it may have become normalized to us, it is not normal to them. And so you'll get students, I have students from places like Asia and from the Middle East and even from the UK saying, how do I go about, sort of thinking about this mass shooting thing? And we dive deep into that conversation. And, I try to just keep my personal opinions about firearms and all of that out of it. I am pro firearm, but I am also pro safety with firearms. But I just want to kind of highlight the fact that just because we have normalized it in this country that it's not normal to a lot of people, and it's not something that a lot of people going other places really think about. Similarly, but not so similar because it's not on the same scale, but knife crime in a lot of countries is a big deal in a lot of cities, even though they work on it. It is something that you may just want to sort of think about, understand what the statistics are around where you're going, understand if there are any recent cases of that. With anything, you never know what's going to happen, but you just want to be aware of what you could potentially do. So understanding how to defend yourself in any way that you can, whatever is going to work best for you, and also understanding kind of what the expectations are around something like that. Other scary scenarios, terrorism, which is something that none of us want to deal with, but pretty much every country, at least every Western country and a lot of other countries at this point, where people would be going to study abroad are subject to terrorism in some ways. We hope that that never happens to any of you, but it's just a real thing. And of course, it's not that we wake up every day and walk out our doors and say like, oh my gosh, is there going to be a terrorist attack today? But we do know that that impacts a lot of other things. So if there is a terrorist attack, what does that look like for the banks? What does that look like for you getting back home or getting out of the country? What does that look like for communication? So there's just all these things that you don't want to go to doomsday, but you just have to be realistic about what could happen. And of course, last but not least, natural disasters. So whether it be hurricanes, monsoons, earthquakes, a lot of times you're going to be fortunate you're not going to experience that. Of course, like I said, if you are going to a place where that is normal, so if you are coming from abroad and you're going to study abroad in a place like Florida, you just might have an action plan for that, because hurricane season is a real thing there. Happens every single year between June and November. And so it's going to be something that you're going to have to face. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to go through a lot of the things that you will see, let's say in the press, of evacuating or something like that, but that you're going there during the normal season of that. Similarly, if you're going to a place that has monsoons or mudslides or earthquakes or wherever, just kind of understanding what that looks like for someone who's visiting and you're newer to the place, so you want to understand what the best case scenario is for you to be able to handle that. So I know today's video was a little bit heavier than a lot of our other videos in this series, but that is because safety and issues around safety are very important. And as I mentioned, I am not a fear monger. I don't like to do that, but I do like to live in reality. And I know that a lot of these things are top of mind, particularly for my younger millennials out there and Gen Zers. You've lived through so much around the world. You've seen so much. And so I know that a lot of you think about these things, but even during study abroad, these are certain issues and topics that you need to consider in terms of your overall safety. And so we just want to keep this top of mind, not being afraid every time you step outside the door, but also just making sure that you are using your common sense and that you are being well aware of your surroundings all the time, and that you are making sure that you are putting your best foot forward every time you leave your home and every time that you go forward within the journey of study abroad. With that being said, I hope that it was very useful for you. Again, check out the free mini course below, because you can learn more in the full module within that mini course on safety if you have more questions. And I will see you tomorrow for day 29.